Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to House of Anderson, the installment on the Houselights series where we are talking about the works of one Mr. Wes Anderson. I am one of your hosts, John Mills. I am joined this evening, as usual, by my esteemed fellow scout, Tristan Riddell. Tristan, how are you?
John, I love you, but you have no idea what you're talking about.
Fair enough. I think that's a line from the movie, but it's also applicable in real life. And we are both joined by our esteemed headquarters scout, Sean Eastridge. Sean, welcome back to Houselights for this discussion of Moonrise Kingdom. How are you?
All I can say is I hope the roof gets torn off and I get sucked out into space.
Me too.
I don't know if that's the correct quote, but it accurately reflects my sentiments, I think.
I was going to say, like, once again, I mean, these quotes are sardonic, but yet could be applicable to everyday life.
It's pretty beautiful. It's all next level. And if you want to go to the next level, go to thenerdparty.com where we have lots of shows. We have Sean's show, Missing Frames, which is an absolute delight where you get to listen to people have reactions to movies they've never seen before and occasionally anger you when they disappoint you with their reactions. And you can also find a lot of other great shows. I'm on Aggressive Negotiations, which is a Star Wars show. Tristan is on a number of shows, including some delightful archived shows like Punch It and Nerd Nuptial. You should check those out. And you can check out everything from Doctor Who to breaking news to obsessive people obsessing over A24 films. You name it, we got it at thenerdparty.com. And follow us on your social networks at Joy Nerd Party on Twitter and the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. So here we are. We're here to talk about Moonrise Kingdom. And I'm hoping that both of you can take me by the hand and let me know how you discovered Moonrise Kingdom and what you thought of it. So we will start with you, Tristan. You have seniority. You are our scout master on the Nerd Party. So Moonrise Kingdom, we love to talk about how excited were you for a movie before it came out? What was your first experience with it? So lay it on us. What happened?
I was all about this. Like I was thoroughly intrigued and I was excited. I was in my full swing of Wes Anderson love because this was post, as we talked about in previous episodes, and Sean, you were there.
I was there. I remember. It was the best.
With Life Aquatic. I was just like, yes. Like once I got in love with that, I was like, this is my movie. I love this guy. I love Wes Anderson. And then Fantastic Mr. Fox came out. I'm just like, holy crap. Yes, I gotta go see Moonrise. I even though I don't like children in movies, it's like especially if they're the lead. Like I can't stand it. I actively avoid
not
movies.
Children in the movie theater, which are things you can actually, like the ones that cry and yell at inappropriate moments, but actual movies about children.
Yes, I mean yes to both, but
Okay.
primarily with this, like you know, lead children in movies. Like I actively avoid them. I actively avoid movies where children have a large amount of screen time. I don't like child actors. I've worked with a few and it's just not fun. So I was just like, I was cautiously optimistic but jazzed at the same time because I was like, hey, new Wes Anderson film. I'm sure it's going to be great. And my wife and I got to go see this in the theater. I just remember that it was a good theater going experience because the crowd was great. Everybody who was there
in the theater.
There was no children, nobody, you know, like screaming or crying or wiping their nose on my seat or anything like that. So I just remember the energy was really good. Like everybody was laughing at the right parts. Everyone was kind of like cheering at the right parts. Not a lot of cheering, but you know what I mean. Like it was just a really good vibe throughout the audience. Sean, how about you?
I remember, and I you know, we spoke about Life Aquatic, and then I missed Darjeeling and Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I think, John, you didn't love Darjeeling Limited, and
I did not.
But you enjoyed Fantastic Mr. Fox.
I did, yes.
So Darjeeling Limited, I enjoy but don't love, and Fantastic Mr. Fox, I had skipped. I saw Darjeeling Limited in theaters. That was like, you know, Life Aquatic was right as I was getting out of high school and going into film school, and Darjeeling Limited was the first Wes Anderson movie I saw in theaters. And I don't remember why I skipped Fantastic Mr. Fox. Like, I don't think I had a good reason, but I even feel like I hadn't seen it before I saw Moonrise Kingdom. So this was like the first new Wes Anderson film I'd seen in a few years. And I went in relatively as a Wes Anderson fan, and I think my feelings about him had cooled a bit since I'd first seen Life Aquatic and had gone back and watched all his movies. So I had no huge expectations. All I knew going in was that this and Fantastic Mr. Fox, he was kind of back on the upswing. As we discussed with Life Aquatic, suddenly the critics were against him, and then Darjeeling Limited, they were lukewarm, and then, oh, wait a second, Fantastic Mr. Fox and Moonrise Kingdom, I guess people love him again. So I was aware of that in the back of my mind. Unlike Tristan, the coming of age genre is like my genre. I love movies. I don't always love child actors, depending on the film, but I think some of my all-time favorite films are like, E.T., I love Harry Potter, Stand By Me, which Tristan and I watched together on Missing Frames. Those are some of my favorite films. So it was kind of like, this is exactly what I want, plus Wes Anderson whimsy. So I think I walked into that theater being relatively excited and walked out feeling like, oh, that might be my favorite Wes Anderson movie.
Okay, see, this is going to be a difficult conversation for me then, I guess, because I'm still in that post-reaction sort of place. And this is my first encounter with Moonrise Kingdom. I don't know why I missed it. I don't know why I've never gotten around to it, sort of thing. I have no problem with coming-of-age movies. I love coming-of-age movies when they're done well. You could stretch, I guess, and say Rushmore is in that category. Sandlot's a great one. Stand By Me, I think, is just one of the all-time classics of the last 40 years. And so I do like the genre.
I would like to point out to everyone listening that Stand By Me is exactly 35 years old because it and I were born in the same year. So we're not at 40 yet, John. Don't make me feel older than I already do.
I'm sorry, I said within the last 40 years, which gave me the window.
Don't
to
even
be
say
imprecise.
40. You know what? You don't have to say 40.
I think it's just the numbers 4 and 0 that kind of tip them off.
Children.
I think that's it. That's
Children,
what really,
come on.
hit me
Listen,
hard.
it's really nice on the other side of the 4-0. Okay, trust me on this one. You get to just relax a little bit. People don't ask you to move so quickly. But anyway, this has all the hallmarks of a Wes Anderson movie I should love, but I didn't. And I'm trying to piece together why. I'm trying to figure it out. I think one of the hurdles, and I can't be alone in this, but one of the hurdles I have with movies that involve children is when there's any sort of sexualization. And it's not to say that I'm a prude or anything, but when they're in their underwear on the beach and hanging out and stuff like that, like a scene or two, I can kind of like, okay. But it just sort of goes on for a period of time that is, I just sort of tune out for those sorts of things. I thought there was so much about the supporting cast that I enjoyed more than the main characters. I wonder if that might be my biggest hurdle. I really enjoyed Bill Murray and Frances McDormand when they had something to do. I really actually enjoyed Edward Norton and Harvey Keitel as the scout
was this
general.
Edward Norton's
or
first Wes Anderson, or was he in Fantastic Mr. Fox too? Because I feel like this might be his debut. Live action, I think it is his debut.
I'm sure it's his debut live action. I don't recall if he was in Fantastic Mr. Fox.
This is his debut.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it that you guys like, Tristan? I can't be the first person you've encountered that's struggling a little bit with this movie. What do you think?
I didn't say I loved or hated this film. I just said I was jazzed when I was in the theater.
Oh, I know.
So you don't even know.
I don't know.
I'm not trying to presume.
You don't.
I'm trying to open the conversation. Do you think that these things that I've sort of listed out are hurdles for this movie, or am I misidentifying why an audience might have trouble connecting?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning. I mean, like when you have child actors, I feel like if you don't really identify with what's going on or what they're struggling with, then you're left with their performance. And this was both of the leads' first movies. And you have these towering names like Bruce Willis and Bill Murray and Francis McDormand and Ed Norton and everything like that. Harvey Keitel, as we've mentioned before, and then you have these two kids that no one's ever heard of, and they're the main focus of the picture. I think they did a fine performance. I think they did absolutely fine, but I feel like you need to be a Haley Joel Osment or a Dakota Fanning in order to get past you watching a child actor. And I think that might play into it for some people because you have this towering side cast that doesn't get used all the time. I think they're utilized well when they're there, but they're not the main focus. And then you have these two kids. And so if you can't relate to their situation, it might be a little hard to enjoy the film. Now, John, when you talked about sexualization of children, I think this is a very touchy subject, and I think it's open to interpretation, and I think it's open to whatever the individual sensibilities are. I don't when I first saw it, I didn't think too much of it, but when I watched it again, actually just in preparation of this podcast, it kind of made me wonder, like, I wonder if they would do this the same way. To me, I think it still walked the line of innocence. Like, I didn't really see anything that was sexualized or overly sexualized. I think it was just you're talking about coming of age stories. This was just one of those sections of coming of age. And one thing that I was wondering about was, you're talking about like kids in their underwear. It kind of just made me think, like, would we feel too terribly different if they were in their bathing suits that covered the same amount? And I think
it's a fair question.
Like they didn't take their bathing suits or they didn't have them. And so that's what they wore because, they were actually swimming. That's just how I kind of saw it.
That's how I saw it. Yeah.
And then there was that awkwardness when they shared their first kiss and, like she made a comment, and thankfully, like, I think that was awkward for me, but not because of what was happening on screen, just because, we've all been in that awkward 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old moment. So to me, that didn't bother me, but I can 100% understand why some people it would disgruntle them.
See, my choice of word was a little too much. I mean, I think that you raise a great point where it's like if they were in swimsuits, would I have even really noticed, that they were disrobed? And it's like that's a really fair thing. I guess it's more of the fact that, I mean, maybe it's just the fact that it went on for as long as it did. Like, I suppose maybe it's just if it was a scene or two, but it just seemed to go on for a lot longer than it needed to, if that makes any sense. And so probably that's what I reacted to. And again, I'm not saying it was done in a prurient fashion. I don't think that this is any sort of like sick movie or anything like that. I just think that after a little bit, it just went on a little bit longer than I would have liked. I mean, Sean, I'm guessing you're more in the camp that, it didn't, like you said, you loved it. Like, do you think that they just got the right mix of everything?
I think, I side with Tristan on this. I want to talk about a couple things both of you mentioned, but to talk about this, they're kids, and to me, it felt like two kids in love, and also they're preteens, so two preteens also dealing with like, we're growing up, and it didn't feel exploitive. It felt, honestly, kind of sweet. If that sounds weird, it felt like very innocent to me, and like these two kids, not like they don't even know what's going on between them, and their reactions are reflective of that. And it's that innocence that makes me feel kind of like it felt sincere and genuine to me.
See,
and not
yeah, no, and I know there are other things that you want to get to, but if I can interject really quick, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you guys are helping me have a little bit of a breakthrough, because just to give a little bit of context, I listened to a really dark podcast recently that had specifically to do with some horrible stuff that happened, and I think possibly that colored my reaction here. Like, I don't have enough distance with those real world things.
don't think you're out of line. I think, it's the exchange they have, and people who have seen the movie know what we're talking about when they're dancing on the beach in their underwear and the conversation that ensues when they kiss each other. We're trying to dance around it because this is a family friendly podcast, but it's very frank in a way that you don't hear a lot of conversations like that between adults or young kids in movies in general. So I think if it struck me as anything the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, they're just talking about it. But that almost made it kind of funny and sweet to me. Like, they don't know what it means. And the underwear stuff didn't bother me.
From Blue Lagoon to Lolita, where does this fall?
Right. That's a terrific point. I don't think it's on the scale between those two movies.
Yes.
So fair point. I do think maybe it's just some real world context was hampering me on that one.
Sure. It's the sweetness of the moment, the innocence of it. None of that bothered me. As far as the kids themselves, I really loved the kids. I agree. I don't think they're the strongest performers, but I think this is going to sound like I'm backhanded complimenting all the actors in Wes Anderson movies, but when you come to a Wes Anderson film, you typically are going to be performing in a certain way. And actors have given fantastic, great performances, but they tend to fall in that line of sardonic, sarcastic, kind of even-keeled line delivery. And the kids, Tristan, when you said like Haley Joel Osment or Dakota Fanning, I feel like I want the awkwardness of these performances in this movie, because great children actors who are going to go for it and win the Oscar, it's not right for this movie or Wes Anderson's style. So while I agree, I think there are a couple line deliveries that are awkward, and sometimes it's actually hard to understand what the kids are saying. I think, to John's point, even speaking of the dancing and the conversations they have and the frankness of those conversations, it makes the thing feel more authentic to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something about Moonrise Kingdom in general that strikes me as, especially in context of Wes Anderson's films. I didn't get to chime in on Darjeeling Limited on the episode, but I felt like with Darjeeling Limited, Wes Anderson almost was floundering a bit creatively. Like, it was maybe his attempt to make an adult movie, like to be like, I'm a serious filmmaker, I'm tackling serious themes, even though this is still my quirky context. And I feel like he lightened up a bit by making Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's like, oh, I don't have to prove myself to the serious critical community or film snobs or anything. This is me and this is my style, and that's the fun of it. And I feel like he found that in live action with Moonrise Kingdom, and the innocence of it and the sweetness and sincerity of it. I almost feel like, this is not to say, I mean, all of Wes Anderson's films have a really genuine emotional core that you can connect with, even with something like Life Aquatic, when you have a main character who's just so sarcastic and like borderline unlikable. You do get down to that emotional core, but I feel like Fantastic Mr. Fox and Moonrise Kingdom, starting with those films, Wes Anderson is almost finding an authentic emotional core to his work in a way, and being more pronounced and not ashamed of it. Like, he's like, this is who I am, and the sweetness of it is not something I'm going to run away from. I'm going to embrace it. And it feels like a fable or a fairy tale to me, and the way it's so innocent and sweet and exaggerated. I think that all ties into what I'm saying about the kids themselves and choosing to focus on them.
So Tristan, do you agree? Like, what it sounds to me, Sean, if I can re-encapsulate, and Tristan, I want to get your thoughts on this, is that he's trying too hard in Darjeeling Limited, and then with Fantastic Mr. Fox and Moonrise Kingdom, he relaxes a little bit, and as a result, it comes a little bit more naturally to him. Do you agree with that, Tristan, or do you see him trying too hard here in Moonrise Kingdom as well?
I think it kind of boils down to your definition of trying too hard, because I feel like with Darjeeling Limited, actually, no, I think with this film.
Did you like Darjeeling Limited? I realize I don't know where you stand on that one.
I'm kind of, John and I were very much in the same wavelength, where there was a lot of things that worked and there was a lot of things that didn't. But I think overall Darjeeling Limited missed the mark. and I think there was a lot of great things to like about it, but it just overall wasn't a good movie. It needed to be, the story needed to be re-edited, it needed to be reorganized and expanded on. It needed a larger side cast, and but with Moonrise, I think Moonrise is the beginning of, this is Wes Anderson in full tilt, where he's just like, oh my God, I am Wes Anderson, and this is my movie. Because you see it on the upswing. Like, you see it like with Life Aquatic, you have a lot of style, but you also have a lot of substance. Darjeeling Limited, it didn't feel like Wes Anderson was aware of himself too terribly much, but you can definitely see the color yellow make more of an appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And with Fantastic Mr. Fox, it's very much a Wes Anderson film, but it's animated and stop motion, so you can't really argue it's him being too self-aware. With Moonrise, I think it's very much him being so utterly self-aware that I'm surprised that the Blu-ray jacket wasn't wrapped in a tweed piece of clothing. So I think from there, I think that I have a hard time answering that question for that reason, is because this is, like in previous incarnations of the show, like when we had Nolan and Fincher, like we talked about, like, oh, here's his early phases, here's where he's starting to, like with Fincher, like here's where he's starting to experiment with, like the digital side of filmmaking. And then once we reach Gone Girl, we're just like, oh, this is full modern Fincher mode. I feel like with Moonrise, this is like, boom, like this is modern Wes Anderson, and it's re-solidified with Budapest. So to me, I feel like in style, he's trying too hard, but with substance, he's much more relaxed. And where with Darjeeling Limited, it was the reverse. Does that answer your question at all?
No, not really, but I'll accept it anyway. In terms of that embracing the style, something I found was somewhat charming and cute was his use of miniature blended with full size, with like the water and everything. And Sean, you said that this seemed a lot like a fairy tale sort of thing. Do you think that aspect of it is enhanced by certain things like the miniature flood and the way that they handle the explosion of the church steeple at the end of it, with the way that they're hanging off of it and stuff like that? Do you think that gives the audience permission to forgive some of the flaws they might see and come at it with, okay, this is just a fun storybook story, as opposed to, a gritty Zack Snyder Superman in the real world sort of thing?
Well, it's magical realism, really. Like, it's, I think Tristan is correct when he says this is really like Wes Anderson is no longer grounded in trying to resemble a reality, or trying to impress anybody in terms of like trying to appeal. And I think Darjeeling Limited to me felt like Wes Anderson trying to be taken as seriously as possible. And it's been a while since I've seen Darjeeling Limited, but it feels like it's stylized and it's pronounced and it's a Wes Anderson movie, but it feels very grounded in terms of its themes, in terms of its quote unquote maturity. It tackles certain things that other films of his don't tackle as like with as much just clear-eyed just ferocity. So I think to me, Moonrise Kingdom is his embracing of like, this is fantasy. Maybe in the same way some people look at like Tim Burton, the latter half of like Sweeney Todd and stuff that he's made in the 21st century that I haven't been as big of a fan of. But I think it would bother me more like the because some of it is like very, for sure, like very quirky, and like Sam gets struck by lightning at one point and then just brushes it off as like, and is like, I'm okay. And it's almost like, was that just a throwaway gag? Like, why did he get struck by lightning? That was so random. To me, I feel like Wes Anderson is no longer making apologies, but he has the substance and the emotional content to back it up.
John, you mentioned like you both mentioned the fairy tale aspect. Wes Anderson has given interviews where he's talked about this film, and he says that this is a film that is almost like a kid remembering what it was like to fall in love for the first time. And or it was when you're obsessed like when you're obsessed with your crush and it becomes your entire world, and it's like being underwater where everything's different. He says that that's kind of what he was going for. And I feel like if that's what the whole film was like, I
Yeah.
think that would have been great. But it only gets to that fairy tale dreamlike stuff in the third act, where
Right.
in the first two acts, like it's much more grounded. It's stylized, but it's really straightforward. It, you know, with once you take into account that you have a narrator. But once you get to the third act, you have the lightning strike. You have get lightning strike by Nichols. You have the lightning strike on the steeple. You have that weird blue silhouette and blue and black silhouette. You have the the steeple falling down, and then you have like Ed Norton with Harvey Keitel on his back, and he just like
Mhm.
he just
Yeah.
he just jumps over it like Keitel doesn't weigh anything, and it looks like miniatures and everything. And so to me, I think once we're getting to this part, since we're talking about this, I think that's the section that kind of threw me, is that it was so stylistically different, in my opinion, from the first two acts that it feels like, okay, are we just going off the rails here? What's going on?
Mhm. Yeah, well, and that's interesting, because one of the things that struck me was it seemed odd to me that the narrator was not like an older version of the kid. I think that would have helped that point more. Is Bob Balaban, I think is the name of the actor, who starts talking about the storm is 3 days away, but then he shows up in the story itself with everybody at the time period. So I can't separate him out from the rest of the story, sort of thing. I think that the fairy tale aspect works better if he never appears, and or it's left to your imagination that maybe it's the kid years later remembering that summer that everything changed for him. Right? Like the fact that the narrator is somebody who is present in the story at the time, at that age, I think is probably why that fantasy aspect is so jarring at the end of the movie, is that I would have been more prepared for it if I had some sort of tell at the end that it was, again, the kid grown up.
That didn't really bother me so much, but I did think it was a weird choice to have him interact in the story, because it's kind of like either have him separate or not, because why is he omniscient, while also a part of
Mhm.
the story? I think like that was a weird thing for me, but it didn't really take me out of it too terribly much. I never really toyed with the idea of him being an older version. I kind of like that he's not an older version of the kid. I like that he's just this omniscient narrator who's kind of separate from the reality. But then that does kind of squash it once he's in it. But I also really like that with Alec Baldwin in Royal Tenenbaums too, because he's not a character. He's just some some narrator talking about the movie. But in this version, we see him. So yeah, it didn't bother me, but I get why that could take some people out of it. Sean, what about you?
The narrator doesn't bother me. I like it a lot. I know it's not necessarily a French New Wave thing to have the narrator in the film, but like the idea of like a narrator who kind of is like omniscient and talking about the things that are happening or the histories of the characters involved. I just liked, again, as a style thing, I love, first of all, I just love the actor. So seeing him in the movie just makes me happy. But I love the idea of framing the film with these kind of like, oh, we have these little educational videos about here is the island, here is this, here's that. And then also setting up the suspense of like, there is a storm coming. And by having him on screen, it just increases the charm for me. Like, I don't think,
I think
that
that's
much
a perfect
beyond
word
that.
for it.
Like, I'm just
Yeah.
like, I love seeing this. This is just fun. And it's a cool little, I wouldn't call it a gimmick, but it's a nice little element of the film that I really enjoy. As to the fairy tale stuff, yeah, it definitely gets more ridiculous in the third act, but I feel like just the whole vibe of the movie, like, I mean, from the tree house at the beginning where it's like somebody could fall from there, or like somebody could, that's an instant death. All that stuff is like, it's more, again, I think it's Wes Anderson making no apologies, but there's so much there's a little bit more sincerity in the emotions, it feels like, and maybe just the young love and the innocence and the sweetness and the heartbreak of that, combined with like the more cynical and brokenhearted relationship of Susie's parents, and just contrasting those two relationships. And even Edward Norton, there's this really like sweet moment where Bill Murray's just, they're on the bridge, and like this is after they find the kid who's been stabbed. He's like, why don't you keep better track of your scouts? And Edward Norton just goes, I'm trying, like just very sweetly and innocently. And then Bill Murray throws a shoe at him because it's a Wes Anderson movie, and it's hysterical. But like, I love the characters in this movie and feel that there's more to root for with them than I do necessarily with other Wes Anderson films. Maybe that's a lot of it. Like, I feel like and again, haven't seen Fantastic Mr. Fox recently enough to really remember it. But when it comes to like Rushmore, I love Max Fisher, but I don't like, is that someone I really want to hang out with? Not necessarily.
Yes.
Royal Tenenbaums, kind of the same thing. Life Aquatic, kind of the same thing. Darjeeling Limited, kind of the same thing. So Moonrise Kingdom feels like, and again, Fantastic Mr. Fox, I remembered just that being kind of a joyful, celebratory experience. But Moonrise Kingdom, it feels like I would love, even though these are troubled children and they're insane, they're crazy, they're stabbing people. Like, these are people that it's almost like the first Wes Anderson movie where the characters are just like kind of lovable in a way. Like, I want Edward Norton to be happy. I want Bruce Willis to be happy. I want these kids to be happy. I want the parents to be happy. Like, you're rooting for these characters in a way that I don't know if you really root for the characters in prior Wes Anderson movies. Not to say you don't like them, but like, I think this is a movie that is better at making the characters more endearing and lovable. And maybe that's why I connected so strongly with it.
I think that's way off base. But what about you, Tristan? Did you want all of these characters to be happy, or did you wish to visit more misery on them?
I don't think that was way off base. I think Sean was onto something. I think, like, even though
I gotta do more podcasts with Tristan. I think I'm realizing.
Hey, fine by me. And this is my last Houselights.
No, like, I love, I've talked about it all the time. I friggin' love Royal Tenenbaums, and there's a lot of characters in there that I really enjoy watching. Even if I want things to turn out okay for them, there's not so much like, oh my God, I absolutely want Margot's next play to be a real hit. Like, I don't really have that instinct. And like, I really hope that Royal, gets to reconnect on this. It's just, even if I want things to go well, it's not like I'm actively rooting for each and every character. But like Sean, like you're saying, with this movie, yeah, I kind of am. Like, I want Bruce Willis and Frances McDormand to stop doing what they're doing, so that, Bruce Willis can find real happiness and Frances can reconnect with Bill Murray, and that I want the kids together. I want Edward Norton to stop being such a screw up, and I want things to go well. But
you know what it is? I think, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the word I keep missing is vulnerability. This feels more vulnerable. And the irony is, as you said, Tristan, rightfully so, it's more stylized and almost more pronounced, but it feels more vulnerable to me. And I think that's maybe why it resonates with me so strongly.
See, I think the style of this is great. I do think it's charming. I do think it's fun. I do think it's entertaining. It's just, I don't get that deeper emotional resonance that seems to hit with you, Sean, and which Tristan is coyly dancing around because he doesn't want to tell us what he thinks yet. But it really is one of those things where it is, like I said at the beginning, I'm still trying to figure out exactly why it didn't hit with me. Now, to be completely fair, we have established with everybody that has appeared on this show that there are Wes Anderson movies where your first viewing, your reaction is essentially like the RCA dog, where your head just turns to the side and you go, and you're not quite sure what's happening. And then the second time you see it, you're like, oh, this is such a charming masterpiece. I can't believe. And so I'm open to that becoming my reaction to Moonrise Kingdom. And I think this might just be one of those ones where the first view, because I had that happen with Life Aquatic, where I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw it again and I was like, wait, no, this is fantastic. And so it's interesting because it's almost as if my better reaction to Fantastic Mr. Fox dooms it to staying where it is in terms of my esteem. Whereas there's something here that makes me, I can already tell, even though I'm not, even though I didn't react as well to it, I know I'll come back to this at some point to give it another shot and see if it's just that I was in a mindset that wasn't ready for this specific thing to happen.
Well, I wonder if part of it is, and this is, I don't want to break Houselights because this is a wonderful show, but I wonder if part of it is Wes Anderson is like, I don't necessarily know if he's a filmmaker best taken in small doses, but I can see how, for instance, my viewing of Moonrise Kingdom my first viewing, as I described, was I'd been outside of Wes Anderson Magic Land for a little while to the point where I even skipped Fantastic Mr. Fox. So it had been a few years since I'd seen a new Wes Anderson movie. And maybe I was more willing to embrace and oh yes, I missed him. Like I didn't realize. And I wonder if because you've been watching them all in a row, it feels a little bit more like, oh, here's another. I've seen the whimsy. I get it. I understand it. If it just blends in that way.
I think that's entirely possible because it's like, whatever it is, somebody in your brain, imagine your favorite dessert. You have your favorite dessert, but do you really want it every night? Maybe not. And that kind of works. But this is a question, and Tristan, I'll ask you first. Is this a movie where your estimation of it has stayed the same, decreased over time, increased over time? Is this a stable Wes Anderson reaction, or is this one that has varied?
The first time I saw it in the theater, I didn't know what to make of it. I walked out thinking, did I like this movie? Did I not? I'm like, damn it. Like, once again, I'm going to have to figure this out upon second and third viewing with Wes Anderson. Because, John, you're absolutely right. We've established that about how he makes movies that make us go, crap, what did I think of this? I'm going to have to watch this again. And that's exactly what I had to do with Moonrise, where I was so unsure. Like, I know that I enjoyed certain moments, but certain other things just kind of took me out of it. And when I watched it again at home, I was like, okay, all right, I get it. I get it now. I'm starting to enjoy it a little bit more. I still don't like the third act as much as the rest of the film, but no, I kind of get it, what he's trying to do with it. And then when I watched it in preparation for this podcast, I think I probably laughed the hardest than I ever had previously. And I fell in love with the one-liners that much more, the style, the charm. I think it really just resonated with me. My rating has stayed the same. Like, my Letterboxd rating has stayed the same because I think the issues don't go away, but my enjoyment has definitely skyrocketed upon multiple viewings.
What about you, Sean? Are you at the same state you were the first time you watched it, or has it fallen a little, gone up a little?
Yeah, it's hard to say because again, like this was my favorite film of 2012, and it was like I walked out of the theater thinking, like, God, I think that might be my favorite Wes Anderson film. And watching it now, and having seen it a few times now, it's hard to say. And of course, nostalgia comes into it. And I mean, Life Aquatic, Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, those three films, like they're almost untouchable to me. Like I saw them so early and so like at the formative part of my film education that they feel kind of like separate from the rest of his filmography in a way. I'd still say this is maybe if not my favorite, definitely like top 3. Like I am still charmed by it, and I think I still personally resonate with it because of the coming of age stuff, which he doesn't really do again or hasn't done yet. So this is like an outlier in his filmography in that regard. I know Rushmore is a good example, but I think this is definitely different.
So I one question I do want to ask, and Tristan, I'll throw it to you first, is we have Alexander Desplat. I don't know how to pronounce his last name ever.
It's
working
Desplat.
Alexandra. We have him working in tandem with Mark Mothersbaugh for this score. Is this one of your successes in terms of a Wes Anderson score, or is this one where it feels different from previous efforts? Or do you think that this is one that you could sit down with as I imagine you probably have your own little portable record player, just like her little brother. Would you spin the 180 gram vinyl pressing of the Moonrise Kingdom score?
No, I probably wouldn't. I wasn't too terribly impressed with the music. I wasn't unimpressed either. It was just kind of there, where there's certain times like you watch Wes Anderson films and you're just like, man, this soundtrack is amazing, or the score is really hitting it. And I didn't really feel that with Moonrise, because like I couldn't actually point to any particular moment that was like, man, I remember man, you remember the music in that scene? That was fantastic. I think the only time I can actually think of that is the slow motion scene, like after they get married, is when they're walking away. I remember thinking, wow, this music is really encapsulating this moment and actually elevating this moment. This is pretty cool. That's about it. So I was pretty unimpressed. This felt like a very rudimentary job for Despleon.
What about you, Sean?
I have the polar opposite. I love Alexander Desplat. He's the best. I love him. I love the soundtrack. This movie has so many musical cues outside of his score that I adore. I love the Francois Hardy song on the beach with the two of them dancing to the song, and I love the I don't know the name of it, but the song that plays at the end. I remember. I don't know if this is a stupid complaint. It probably is, as most of my complaints are stupid. But the Criterion cover of this is the final shot of the movie, the beach with the Moonrise Kingdom written out in the stones on the beach. I was not aware of. So the emotional power of that moment in the theater, like, was instant tearjerker for me with the music. And when Susie crawls out the window and says, or not Susie, Sam crawls out the window and is like, I'll see you tomorrow, with the music in the background. And then you go down to the painting and you realize that's what this was all about. That's what, when she was saying, we should rename this place, what should we call it? I'll think about it. And just the perfect payoff of that moment with the music, I was like, this is magic. Like, this is what movies are capable of when they're working correctly. So yeah, but this is all to say I love the score and it works really well for me. And I love the motive of the kids, the like explaining like, all right, now we're going to build the instrumentation up and now we're going to break it down. And I love that they do that in the actual soundtrack too.
See, I definitely fall more in line with Tristan. I don't think that there was anything like, I'll make reference to what is definitely up to this point my absolute favorite Anderson film, which is Rushmore. Like, I can remember the organ note when Max's friend sees Bill Murray walk into her house and like there's a burr and like standing, that sort of thing. I don't have any magical thing with that. I do think it's nice. One of the interesting fairy tale sort of symbolism, I guess, or whatever, is the fact that the painting at the end and the name of the place at the end speaks to the idea that this is a fleeting moment in history, in a life. This place no longer exists. It got blown away in the storm. So it will forever only ever be preserved in their memory. It will never exist anywhere else. That is a really nice, beautiful sort of thing that speaks to the idea that this is a magical summer where things change, just like, you were talking about earlier, Stand By Me, where it's like this is an era, this is a feeling that can't ever be captured again.
Grease. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
So I just I just think that the score doesn't work particularly well for me in terms of, is this something I could listen to outside of the film? I can listen to Rushmore, I can listen to Steve Zissou, I can listen even to Fantastic Mr. Fox. Outside of them, I can just have them playing in the background or something while I'm cleaning the house or whatever. But this, I'd be like, oh, the Moonrise King, nah. That sort of thing. So
can't even finish the name of the movie.
Right.
That's how
exactly.
little you care. The Moonrise the Moon King. Yeah, sure.
you know, that sort of thing. One last question, because visually we talked about his style. There are certain moments where there's like a washout visually where it looks like almost like a degraded 8mm film from the era, like a home movie sort of thing. Did that enhance anything for you, Tristan, or was that just sort of a feeling of there's one shot in particular that I immediately think of where he's looking straight at her, but it's straight at the camera. And there's that sort of sepia washout that if you look back at old 8mm home movies and stuff like that, do you think that enhances the memorial aspect of what's happening here? Or do you think it's just Anderson being cheeky and saying, I haven't really done that before?
I think it enhanced the 60s feeling for me, because, like so much of Wes Anderson's work and feeling and verve is influenced by the 70s. So much of it, like so much of what we've talked about has been a timeless quote unquote aspect because it's set in a different time, because it's set in the 70s. But I feel like the color palette, the brightness, how Moonrise is a little overexposed, and you got a little bit of that in Life Aquatic sometimes, feels very much like the kind of film that was used in the 60s, the kind of Kodak that was used, where the reds pop a little bit more, the yellows pop, and you have some very bright blues, some browns and yellows and tans that are kind of just overexposed. They're just too bright, that you wouldn't normally see. That screams some of that 1960s footage that I've seen from some of my family's home videos and from stuff that I've seen in other people's houses and online and everything. So to me, like, to have that little, 16mm washout, or even some of that grain, or when they're looking at the camera, or like whenever she's using her binoculars, you really notice that grain too. I think that just kind of enhanced the time frame for me, like the setting, in my opinion.
Okay. Sean, same opinion?
I think, yeah, I agree, Tristan. I think that really almost subtly, because I guess you should pick up on it, but because Wes Anderson films are so stylized, you don't necessarily immediately latch on and say, oh, it's the 60s. Oh, it's the 80s. It's like the films are almost all timeless. So when Moonrise Kingdom kind of dates itself, I think there is one point where they actually are like, oh yeah, it's this particular time frame. You're like, oh, I guess, yeah, there's a record player. I guess that would be the situation. But I think subtly what they do with the colors and what they do with the palette. And I think Robert Yeoman, the DP, he shot it, apparently, according to Wikipedia, on Super 16mm film, like the entire movie.
The whole movie?
Yeah, it says cinematographer Robert Yeoman shot the film on Super 16 film with a 1.85:1 aspect ratio using, I don't know if this means anything to anybody, Aton, I don't know how you pronounce this, Xtera, Xtera, and A Minima cameras. And Anderson said the Aton cameras in particular were great because they ended up being roughly the same height as the kids. So it was definitely like very clearly a stylistic choice to go with that particular camera or those particular cameras. But I think it does. It to me, it's to John's point. It kind of re-emphasizes like this is a memory, like this is a magical moment, like this is something that happened almost outside the space of regular time, and it's. I think it really hits home with that in a way that. Again, all of Anderson's films are stylized, but looking at this one with that context, it's like, oh yeah, this feels a little bit more like looking through photographs from that particular era, like a photograph book.
Well, no wonder I felt like it gave me the 16mm Kodak vision, is because it was actually 16mm and shot on Kodak.
Well, we'll be sure to note that that's according to Wikipedia. So, I
just went and checked on IMDb, and yeah, it has.
IMDb, fancy,
ooh, more authoritative.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it says negative format 16mm Kodak Vision 3 200T 7213. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. I think that absolutely That
stars.
just reaffirms everything that I said. So
See,
there you go.
see, the thing is, I just imagine, especially with like Anderson, that like the developing labs or whatever, we're like, all right, well, who we got on the docket this week, guys? Wes Anderson. Oh, geez, what's he gonna do this time? Oh my gosh, like,
Wouldn't you feel like you'd be excited though? Like it's like, especially in an era where so much is digital and there's all this debate about it. It's like, oh, we haven't done 16 millimeter. We haven't done a whole movie like that in years. How exciting! And they go dig up like this. They go knock on the door and they're like, "Hey, Frank, it's a 16 millimeter." And he's like, "I've been waiting for this my whole."
See, the thing is, you're writing a Wes Anderson movie right now because you're going to have a young kid that's only ever worked on digital, and he's going to find the magic of 16 millimeter film at the end of it all.
There's a friend of mine who's a working cinematographer, and this was probably about 10 years ago when he told me this story, where he said he's like, oh, we want to shoot our indie film on film, and he actually went to Kodak and said, like, this is what I want to do, this is what I want it to look like, and they're like, wait, seriously? Like you want to you want to shoot it on film? Here you go. And they basically just gave him film to use.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Just gave it to him. They're just like, no, use it.
We're just going to throw it's just gathering dust. Just go ahead and use it as much as you want. Okay, so I mean, here we are at the inevitable conclusion of a conversation like this. And Tristan, we'll let you go first because you've kept it under wraps since the beginning. Where do you end up with Moonrise Kingdom on your scale of 1 to 5 sets of binoculars, I guess? Where do we end up?
As I said, I really enjoy this movie. Like I find it really entertaining. I think the one-liners are great. I think the delivery is pitch perfect. But the third act is just a mess to me. It's just an absolute mess. And I feel like it's if there was more craziness in the first and second act, where it was more of the lightning strike and more of the chapel falling down in the flood and things like that, and like Edward Norton jumping, if that was happening all throughout, it probably wouldn't bother me. But because it was just isolated just in the third act, it took me out of it. So I my scale is 5 stars is best of the best, 4.5 is excellent, 4 is great, 3.5 is good, 3 is liked it, but it has its issues. 2.5 is missed the mark. 2 is bad, and the rest you don't even need to talk about. I put this film at 3, where I like it, but it has its issues. That's kind of where I'm at with it. But like on Letterboxd, I put it 3 stars, but a little heart next to it, just a little heart saying I enjoy it.
That's just mixed signals there, Tristan. And
no, what it is it's me saying that I understand that my enjoyment isn't always tied to the rating. Because I think from a technical perspective, and
I get you, Tristan. Don't worry, we're going to do some
perspective
podcasts after this.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, see, the thing is, I sense a hostile takeover, and this is really starting to get a little uncomfortable. So I feel like I got to wrap this up. Sean,
I want to say one more thing, and this is really just a tidbit about the movie that I really want to ask you guys. What is the deal with Bill Murray's characters and his wife cheating on him in every single Wes Anderson film? Think about it. His first film is Rushmore, and so we see his wife like flirting with the tennis instructor, whoever he is. Now, granted, he's an adulterer in that one too. And then we go to Royal Tenenbaums. Margot is cheating on him. Then we go to Life Aquatic, and he's an adulterer as well, but she has her research assistant with the long hair and just wearing jeans. And then after that he's in, what is it? Is it Phantasm? Darjeeling Limited. Never mind. We don't see his wife in Darjeeling Limited. But then, in Fantastic Mr. Fox, that's stop motion. You don't have anything like that. And then you have this one. So the only one that we don't see is Darjeeling Limited. That's because we never see his wife. But I'm sure if we did, she'd be cheating on him.
Maybe this is Bill Murray's therapy, and he's trying to send out cries for help and hugs or something like that. No, I honestly, I think that it's just a story crutch, I guess. Not crutch is too negative a word or whatever. I think it's just a story thing that Anderson probably likes to use. But I think that Murray is he has such a gift for performing a role where there's pain, but you don't fear his reaction to it. Like with people who have been cheated on, like there's always that thing like, oh boy, are they going to go into the workplace and do something terrible? Whereas Bill Murray, you trust that he's going to react the way he does in Royal Tenenbaums of, you've made a cuckold of me several times over. Like, it's just, that's like, I believe his reaction as being the very, well, okay, that's the way it is. And I'm not going to kill anybody over this, but boy, it kind of sucks.
Speaking of which, okay, I wasn't sure what Anderson was trying to tell us in this, but he has two black eyes. Were we supposed to believe that he actually did fall in a ditch, or are we supposed to believe that she hit him?
I think
like,
she
what
hit
do you
him.
guys think? You think she hit him, Sean? What do you think?
Yeah,
I would go with that. Yeah. Or maybe like one is her hitting him and the other is inexplicable.
no, I think she hit him because that when they're having that conversation where he says he hopes that the roof gets torn off and he gets sucked into space. That's a very sad man laying there. He's probably said something that drew the punch or whatever. And he's just so defeated that he just, that I think those are just manifestations of that pain, because that's what he talks about is he's just so empty and defeated inside. I mean, his character is really depressing when you think about it. But again, Murray plays it with that sort of cool aplomb that just makes you not fear him, makes you feel sorry for him. So
that makes me sad.
That's my take on it. Yeah, it does. So Sean, I'm guessing 10 stars, or I'm sorry, 10 sets of binoculars out of 5 on this
All
one?
the binoculars. Yeah. I'd probably say 4.5 out of 5. 9. If it's 10 now, we'll do 9.5 binoculars. But beyond being one of my favorite Wes Anderson films, I think this is just one of my favorite like childhood love stories. It's a very sweet film. It's very heartfelt and touching. Like I find it one of Wes Anderson's most touching films. So I think it to me is, as Tristan said, it's the bridge between like, all right, let's try to find our way and let's go some style, but not completely. Let's be grounded in reality, into the realm of just almost pure fantasy and stylization. But to me, I think the core of it is so grounded in an emotional reality that I'm here for it. So I'd still rank it pretty highly. I think Rushmore and probably Royal Tenenbaums are still my favorite, but this is right up there.
Well, I'm ready for pitchforks and torches here because I wind up giving it 2.5 because I think its heart is in the right place. There are things about it that I like, but the whole time I just didn't have the connection that I wanted or expected or think that I needed throughout it. And I think part of that is structural. I think part of that is contextual. Again, I'm completely open to the idea that it's going to bump up a little bit in the future when I watch it. There are things that I do genuinely enjoy. I think Ed Norton is great. I like his character a lot. I wanted to spend more time with his character. And so I think that maybe it's just a problem of focus in some way. But the story at the end of the day is about those two kids. And so how on earth can you take any focus away from them? And so in a sense, it's almost like an embarrassment of riches thing where the supporting characters are so interesting to me that I'm not as engaged with the main plot line. And so it's always going to work against itself because I'm never going to get to spend time with the people that are actually, getting the emotional trigger out of me. Like I even Frances McDormand's character, I wanted to spend more time with her. I want to find out what the hell does she see in Bruce Willis? What's wrong with her and Bill Murray? And so it just works against itself through the movie, while at the same time, I can completely respect what it does visually. I appreciate again that its heart is in the right place, but I just think it just missed the mark. And so that really will anger probably a fair number of people. Sean, thank you for joining us on this journey. Taking your time out from Missing Frames and coming on over here. But where can people find you out there if they want to talk to you about how much they love Moonrise Kingdom just as you do?
Well, of course, check out Missing Frames on the Nerd Party Network. And you can also find me on Twitter at @ASeanDoorman and on Letterboxd at SeanDoorman.
Tristan, please point everybody in the right direction to talk to you about this film.
Twitter and Letterboxd at The Insane Robin. Please follow me. Check me out. It's a lot of fun. And like Sean said, and like John said at the top of the show, go to thenerdparty.com for something for everyone.
You can find me as Kessel Junkie, usually harassing one of these two fine gentlemen, either on Twitter or Letterboxd. I think Letterboxd is more fun nowadays, and so I try to spend more time over there. But it's difficult because all you can do is just talk about movie reviews, so it makes it more difficult to harass either of you. But thank you for joining us, and tune in next week when we take a journey to the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.